Everybody, welcome back to Seller Performance Solutions. Welcome to what will probably be a brief episode since we both have calls coming up. We just want to dip our toe into the AI topic. I know there's been lots of friction, posts about it, questions about it, what Amazon's doing on the AI side. I think Amazon's still kind of working on the AI stuff in terms of appeals and investigations and listing takedowns. But let's just start with what you've seen where the wrong thing happens and how that impacts how you handle the approach to appealing an ASIN takedown.
Well, I think we actually touched on this a little bit in the last episode. I'm seeing more and more that different teams within Amazon don't have the ability to correct things. They've been essentially come back and are like, the computer said no. So I think we're seeing a lot more on the enforcement and the resolution side where it's automated. There are still humans involved, but it seems like in a lot of cases, the humans can't override the machine when the machine gets it wrong. So on the enforcement side, that's what I'm seeing a lot of. On the seller side of things, I think it's going to be interesting to see how sellers adapt to AI search and Rufus, because there is a long history, let's say, of putting extraneous information in listings to try to increase the ranking in search, or putting products that aren't the same into variation families to try to increase the visibility. But with AI, that could actually be more detrimental to search, because that's just going to confuse the algorithm. The algorithm is going to think that the product is something else than what it is, right, and it's not going to show it to the right people. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how sellers adapt to that. And for me, that's kind of cool because it'll actually make them more policy compliant without them caring about the policies.
Well, and for years, there's also a long history of sellers writing angry appeals that in the first couple lines say, your AI or your automation did this to me, or you took us down with a bot. I think the word bot was used more often than AI. Now I think I see less use of the word bot and much more reference to your AI influenced tools or teams or whatever did something to me. I mean, we're in the vetting stage. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not, right? I wouldn't recommend that people just assume in a knee-jerk appeal like, oh, this is Amazon's AI acting out of bounds or not doing what it's supposed to do, because that could be incorrect. And if you start on the wrong footing of giving them inconsistent or incorrect info, then it's probably going to lengthen your process.
Ultimately, whether it was AI or a low-level team member, it's irrelevant. What's relevant is whether they were right or wrong. So it just doesn't serve any purpose being in your appeal, whether it's right or wrong.
Here's a good question. Are you having some of your people put in like the subject line of an appeal email a reference to AI? Just so that, no? Okay.
Are you?
No, I haven't. But I think we're going to have to start considering that so that we help. I mean, there's a long history of our having that point in a direction to help Amazonians find Amazon stuff that went wrong, right? And I think it helps a lot of times. This is a general appeal tip, actually, to, if you think you have a pretty good idea of what happened, to at least steer them in the right direction. I do not recommend guessing. I think that's counterproductive. But if it looks like you can tell what's going on here, a lot of people do this already with dispute appeals, like, oh, you've got the wrong person. I think this is a right-click error, stuff like that. I think we're going to start doing that with AI, clear AI misfires or examples of breakage with their AI, because I think we all can agree they're experimenting with it, especially when it comes to listings and appeals.
So I don't specifically reference AI, but I do reference when something is immediately rejected, and that it indicates that nobody actually reviewed it, which generally speaking is some sort of automation if it's immediately rejected once submitted. But I don't know. I still don't really see the point of mentioning the AI in an appeal.
Some emails are answered immediately because a person
I don't mean emails. I mean, like, you submit an appeal and it's like within 5 seconds, it's just, this was rejected. That's not a person. That's an automation. I think I probably see that more than you do, because that's less of a seller performance thing and more of a brand registry and catalog thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say experimenting.
Yeah.
I think catalog and brand registry, I will hazard a guess, is maybe where they started to experiment with some of this stuff.
And we all know how well that went.
Well, we all know that it'll spread eventually to your seller performance stuff, because the armies of people all over the world on different continents looking at these things, we all know where this has been in the past and where it's going in terms of shoddy work, a lack of quality assurance, investigators not annotating accounts, people not reading appeals. Where does that end logically? Well, if they're performing the same function as automation or AI, then those people will eventually be replaced by it. It only makes sense. If that's a good thing or a bad thing, we can talk about sometime. We don't have 7.5 minutes. But the bottom line is people have to prepare for that now. And I think they have to start, if they identify a clear software tool glitch, misfire, whatever, they have to start saying, I don't know if this is your AI going haywire or not, but this has to be fixed.
Yeah, and I mean, we've certainly done that on the, say, catalog side of things where PCRP restrictions, a lot of those are just automated flags based on specific words. I had a case, actually, it was like a year ago now, where the product was just repeatedly getting flagged as something that it wasn't because of a legitimate word for them to use. And so that did eventually result in Amazon updating the algorithm so it no longer got flagged. And I've also worked on other catalog cases where massive amounts of product were being moved to the wrong part of the catalog by the algorithm. And that also resulted in Amazon making a specific update to those listings in particular and not the entire catalog. But it did actually result in them updating the listing so the automation didn't function on those specific listings. So I think they do know internally that these are required. It's just with a lot of issues, you've got different teams who can't speak to each other. So the teams that are writing the algorithms are not the teams that are handling the enforcement or that are speaking with sellers. And so getting that information to those teams is, I think, what's going to be the most difficult part of this, because nobody that sellers can reach generally have the authority to go to those teams and get the algorithms updated.
You show me some examples, and again, we'll have kind of a part 2 of this episode, maybe later this month or next. I think we'll do an episode just of some of your examples where it's clearly an AI error, and it becomes an issue of, is Amazon willing to own up to, yeah, this listing should go right back up, not next week, but today, because tinkering with this stuff clearly took down something incorrectly, and that should be fixed. Meaning, does everyone have to just start emailing escalations to executives to get something that simple, straightforward, and basic fixed?
Well, yeah, the lower level teams just don't have the authority to fix these things. They don't have access to the things that are required to fix them.
But do you think they know, yeah, this is an AI, this is not a case I should spend a lot of time on, because this is clearly one of our AI mistakes based on all the other?
Like I said, I've just been getting way more responses of like, I can't do it because the computer said no.
Well, they've been saying garbage like that for a while.
But it like legitimately, and then even pushing it up the chain, they're like, I'm trying to get this overridden. So I think they are aware, but it's just getting those processes to fix it, I think, is what's going to take time.
Well, that's okay. So we can close on this point. We've talked about appeals, kind of did cart before the horse a little bit. What tips can you give people in terms of assessing whether or not it may be errant bots, tools, AI that took the listing down versus?
Again, I don't think that's what they should be looking at. What they should be looking at was the action correct or not? It doesn't matter if it was a person or if it was AI.
I will clarify. They already know it's a wrong thing. Do you think in that assessment period, they should, well, obviously double check, sure, if you did something wrong on your side, but once you get past that point, do you think when you're calling account health, talking to catalog, talking to support, whoever you talk to before you appeal, you should bring up certain things and have them look for certain stuff, whether it's in the annotations or not? I know annotations are tricky. Lots of Amazon teams don't want to share what they see. Mm-hmm. But is there anything else you can do on the research or fact-finding side before you do the appeal submission?
I mean, the only thing is if something is just like immediately getting rejected, that indicates that it's not being reviewed by a human. I really think that's the only relevant thing to be saying. If you're trying to escalate it through account health, ultimately guessing whether it's AI or a human is not going to add that much weight to what you're doing.
I was thinking more like, can you say, I'd already talked to catalog teams. I tried to update listing content and correct whatever went wrong here. And
well, yes. I mean, we already do that. But that has nothing to do with whether it was a human error or an AI issue.
I know we do it.
I mean, documenting that you followed their processes and their processes aren't working is what you should be doing when escalating it. Whether it was human error or machine error isn't really that important at that stage.
Good succinct point to end on. Thank you so much. As you can imagine, dear listener or viewer, we will be revisiting the AI story over and over as we have more examples. And I do promise to deliver a part 2 where we go over a couple of examples to the extent that we're able to publicly share from cases we've worked on. Thank you, Leah, for your wonderful insights. I will see you again soon.